Good afternoon. My name's Catherine Waddams. I'm a licensed lay minister here. Welcome to our weekly reflection at St Peter Mancroft, whether you're here in church or watching online. If you are here in church, please feel free to carry on sitting or listening or with your visit. I've got a question for you. I wonder what sort of place you would say that St Peter Mancroft is. Of course, it is a medieval church building, which most people find impressive and beautiful. But it is seen differently by different people, and some people like it more than others. It's a place where people gather for worship, mainly on Sundays, but at smaller services during the week too. A place where people celebrate the great events of life, celebrate birth through baptism, have marriages here, and celebrate lives after death. This morning we celebrated the life of a very well-loved verger at his funeral and heard about how he served this place and what this place meant to him. It's a place where people come to find a quiet space, to sit or kneel, to think or pray. We welcome everyone. We have welcomers on duty for that purpose. People are welcome of all faiths and none, and we aim to be a place of sanctuary, with all that that word implies. We will welcome sheriffs from across the country at our 10 o'clock service on Sunday as part of their weekend meeting in Norwich, an important link to the civic life of our city. The building is a significant one. It's certainly obvious, often mistaken for the cathedral, part of the city's architectural heritage. And we were delighted to welcome so many people to our events and to visit during the recent Heritage Open Days. And the church building also tells us something about the place where it is located, the city of Norwich and its history. We're just opposite the city hall with the market next door and the forum building across the way. We have the mayoral shields and holders to remind us of the contributions to the city's life of people who have been associated with this church. Lots of memorials to past worshippers, including Thomas Brown, a doctor, scientist and historian in the 1600s who is buried here at the high altar and contributed so many ideas and hundreds of words to our language. Quite intriguing, some of them, which you'd think were very modern. Medical, electricity, migrant, computer. There are memorials to more modest and humble folk, like my favourite in the quiet chapel, to Mr. William Woodcock, who was during half a century an inhabitant of this parish under the same roof. In a career singularly unassuming, he exhibited an exemplary pattern of integrity as a citizen, loyalty as a subject, and resignation as a Christian. What a wonderful memorial. Of course, there's little record of the poor from the past. You had to have a certain amount of money to get one of these memorials. But in a more modern idiom, the Quiet Chapel includes a book to commemorate those who have more recently died, according to the date of their death. It's about to go for updating in time for our service of remembrance, especially for those who've died during the past year, which we'll hold on the 5th of November. There are so many memories associated with this place. And so we see that this church reflects something of the history of Norwich, the place where it is, and of the people who have lived here. Christians sometimes refer to the church as the body of Christ, established to continue to spread the good news of the gospel. The good news that God was made human. The Word became flesh. And because people live in a particular time and place, this incarnation, as we call it, and which we celebrate particularly at Christmastide, happened, in fact, 2,000 years ago in Palestine. This church, like the many others in Norwich, represents that good news now, today, in Norwich. And I see the heart of that good news as Jesus' mission that all people should have life in all its fullness, free from the burden of hunger, homelessness, despair, anxiety, which prevents people from reaching their full potential. Communities like ours here at St Peter Mancroft are called not only to worship together within the building, welcoming, of course, all who want to join us, but perhaps more importantly, to take that good news beyond the ancient doors, to bring life in all its fullness to the place where we are. This can be seen as a worldwide and international message. We can use words and campaigns, votes and financial contribution to try and help those parts of the world where barriers to such flourishing are most acute. The message is just as valid closer to home, for those in our city whose hunger, homelessness, anxiety hamper their well-being, those who beg on our streets or queue for food in St. Peter's Street each evening just outside the west door. How do we take our message to people on our own doorstep and to the wider community which works and shops in the city, most of whom have little experience of being inside a church? Some messages can be displayed, inviting engagement from the wider community. I think of the Gaia exhibition focusing on environmental issues a few years ago, the leaves of the tree on the chancel steps commemorating those who had died from COVID, the exhibition of quilts commemorating victims of the Grenfell Towers disaster. St. Stephen's across the road offers hospitality and advice in their coffee shop with a pay-what-you-can approach. St. George Colgate, like many churches, offers a warm space in winter and cool in summer, and refreshment and community. We support the local food bank by providing them with space at Chantry Hall, and other churches and faith groups run food banks or social supermarkets. All these activities show God's love and wish for fullness of life through responding to need beyond the church door and providing challenges within the communities where we find ourselves. At our Harvest Festival this Sunday, the church will be decorated with traditional harvest fruits, and we're invited to reflect both international and local engagement through contributing to 2 charities. By giving money to Christian Aid, a UK charity fighting global poverty, and by bringing contributions for welcome packs for migrants, asylum seekers and refugees, which New Roots, a local charity based just across the river, will use in their work with new arrivals in Norwich. Our campaigns and our gifts of money and of items reach out beyond this geographical location as part of our wish to join in God's mission of bringing life in all its fullness to the wider world and in our local city. So what sort of place does that make St. Peter Mancroft? I can think of 3 dimensions. First, there's a physical one, the magnificent building and its monuments. Secondly, it could be thought of as what happens inside it, its congregation gathered from far beyond the rather narrow parish boundaries, the traditional worship, the special services, concerts, welcome and exhibitions which happen within its walls. And thirdly, it's defined by how it relates to the place where it is, in the centre of Norwich in 2023, by how it portrays the Christian message to its own surroundings. Jesus, our inspiration, was an itinerant preacher who had no fixed place of worship and spent his time preaching, healing and challenging in the Palestinian communities as he travelled. He didn't found any church, no buildings, but he did found a movement which responds to local circumstances. doing the same in our own time and place is surely the best definition of any church and the best definition of the sort of place that St Peter Mancroft is.